is a night of sharing, and I want to thank those members of my congregation who a couple of weeks ago shared this cold with me. And I hope that I haven't shared it with too many of you, but probably have, and I apologize, but there's a lot going on. I also want to just thank everybody for your hospitality this evening and for inviting me to be part of this evening. And thank you also for the wonderful dinner. I was going to have one bite of the Noah's pudding and bring it home for the family, and didn't stand a chance. So I don't know how many of you had the same goal, but it is a pleasure to be here this evening. And it's sad that so often that we find people of different faiths, even faiths that trace their ancestry to the same individual or share so many of the same stories, confront each other in an atmosphere of mistrust, or of anger, or suspicion. And this evening we're sitting together in an atmosphere of mutual respect and a sincere desire to learn from each other. There's a blessing in the Jewish tradition which expresses joy and satisfaction at celebrating a significant event, and it seems to me to be appropriate to say, those of you who know it can join with me. I'll do it first in Hebrew and then the English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'achiyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Praise to you, O Lord, our God, ruler of the universe, who has kept us in health, sustained us, and brought us together to reach this moment in time. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm honored to be part of the program this evening. We do a great service to our Creator when we gather in events like this, and when together we loudly and clearly reject those of all faiths who commit acts of heinous violence or who seek domination in the name of God. Our Jewish tradition and so many of our religious traditions have stressed that we're all connected with each other, equally beloved in the eyes of God. There's a wonderful text in the Mishnah, the first post-biblical code of Jewish law, that teaches that the Bible story of creation reminds us that we all have a common ancestor, and that no one should be able to say, my father is greater than your father. May we take these words to heart always. So the other day, I was teaching a section of that text called the Mishnah, the first post-biblical code of Jewish law, to a group of fifth graders. And I was teaching them about the tradition, it comes from the Bible, called in Hebrew the payah, the corners of the field. There was a commandment that the farmer was to leave the corners of his field unharvested, so that the poor and the disenfranchised who were walking on the roads alongside the fields, traveling from one place to another, could sustain themselves through difficult times. So the text I was teaching these fifth graders was the question of how big a corner do you have to leave? Right? If you look at the text in the Torah, it says a corner. So a corner could be this, a corner could be this. So I asked them, these kids, I said, what do you think is the determining factor in how big a corner you should leave? And I got a lot of answers, and most of them were such as, well, it depends on how generous you are, depends on how much you have, depends what you feel like, things like that, and those are part of the text. But I asked them to keep thinking, and I told them to think a bit outside the box, because they were seeing the world only from their own perspective. And finally, about 5 minutes later, one of the kids raised his hand and said, maybe it depends on how many poor people there are out there. So I don't give out gold stars, but I just almost made an exception. Because the text from the Mishnah does state that one of the determining factors in how large a corner of the field you're supposed to leave depends on how great a need there exists in the community. The greater the need that exists, the greater is our responsibility to give more and to care more. Now this may seem obvious, but it often happens that in times of difficulty, in insecurity, of uncertainty, and certainly in difficult economic times, we tend to turn dramatically inward, protecting that which we have, seeking to fulfill only our own needs. And often when we see others in need, our first impulse is to think of our own situation and say, boy, we might be in trouble or we might be threatened, and we kind of pull in and show less concern for others. It's easy to dismiss that kind of attitude as cruel and selfish, but within reason, it is also realistic and self-preserving. Our Jewish tradition reminds us that we have a sacred responsibility to preserve ourselves and our family, even as we are supposed to care deeply about others. The great rabbinic sage Hillel said 2,000 years ago in beautifully poetic Hebrew, "In ein ani li mili," if I am not for myself, who will be for me? We do have to care for ourselves and for our own. Our lives are not worth less than anyone else's. But Hillel continues in the same sentence, "Ukshani li atzmi ma'ani," but if I'm only for myself, what kind of person am I? In all situations, and particularly at times of distress, we have to look beyond ourselves. We have to think out of the box which defines our existence in terms of our own needs and our own perspective, and think about what is happening out there, and do what we can with that which we have to make others' lives better. And that does require us to reach out. To reach out, as it were, to the corners of our fields, the corners that contain the roads that connect us to other people, and share not only of our financial resources, but our human qualities of compassion, of wisdom, of experience, and hope for a better future. Hillel's statement, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me? And if I am only for myself, what kind of person am I?" ends with a slightly, or maybe very, enigmatic statement, which is, if not now, when? Apparently, and there's been a lot of discussion about what he meant, but apparently he means that there's no time like the present to begin to commit ourselves to acting in this way. And as we look around the situation in our state, in our nation, there is no time like now to reach out in that way. And it becomes even more important that we reach beyond ourselves and show concern, perform acts of kindness for others in need. We need to dare to reach to the corners of our fields, not just stay ensconced in the middle where we feel safe because we don't have to see others or don't have to care about them. We have to move to the corners where we see others and we react to their needs and let them help us as well. This is a wonderful gathering, and I'm so proud to be here. May we all recognize that all of our great religious traditions ask us to be responsive to and, in fact, proactive in reaching out to the needs of others in difficult times. We need to take care of ourselves. That is a sacred responsibility as well. But we must find ourselves always in the corners, ready to reach out to others in mutual respect, concern, peace, and compassion. Good evening, and thank you.